Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready for a story that will leave you thinking. And if you love inspiring tales, a like goes a long way. We don't accept pocket change for real art, sweetheart. The auctioneer's words sliced through the air as laughter rippled across the charity gala. The little girl in the faded blue dress clutched her envelope tighter, tears welling in her eyes as smartphone cameras turned in her direction. The auction hall glittered with wealth, crystal chandeliers reflecting off designer gowns and custom tuxedos. The painting, a simple lighthouse against a stormy sea, hung illuminated at the front, its starting bid of $25,000 displayed on the digital screen. In the back row, partially hidden by shadows, Robert Downey Jr. lowered his auction paddle, his eyes never leaving the child. "Security, please escort our young friend out," the auctioneer continued with a practiced smile. Now, where were we? He didn't notice how the man in the back row slowly stood up, straightening his tie with deliberate precision. What happened next would change everyone in that room. If this moment made you feel something, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and stay with us. Subscribe now. The girl's shoulders hunched forward as if to make herself smaller against the weight of 100 judging stares. Her sneakers, worn at the edges and decorated with faded marker drawings, squeaked against the polished marble floor. The envelope in her hand contained exactly $43.27, every penny she'd saved for months. Emma was 11, but the determination in her eyes belonged to someone much older. "That painting was my mom's," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the elegant chamber music. But no one seemed to care. The auctioneer was already describing the emerging artist's tragic story that made the lighthouse painting not just art, but an investment. He never mentioned that the artist had left behind a daughter, that the lighthouse had been the last view from the hospital window where Emma had held her mother's hand as she slipped away. Security approached from both sides, a man in black and a woman with a sympathetic but firm expression. "Come on, honey, this isn't for kids," the woman said, placing a manicured hand on Emma's shoulder. A few guests chuckled, phones still recording the adorable interruption to their evening's entertainment. One woman in diamonds whispered to her companion, "This must be part of the charity theme. So creative." The auctioneer cleared his throat. "Now, as I was saying, bidding starts at $25,000. Paddles began to rise around the room. Emma's fingers opened and closed around her envelope, her small body trembling. The painting, her mother's lighthouse, was being claimed by strangers who saw only investment value in the brushstrokes that had once been extensions of her mother's hands. The security guards each took one of her elbows, gently but firmly guiding her toward the exit. Robert Downey Jr. had come to the auction out of obligation, another celebrity appearance at another charity function. He'd planned to bid on something modest, pose for photos, and leave early. But now his attention was locked on the unfolding scene, a familiar feeling rising in his chest. He recognized something in that girl's eyes, the same determination he'd once needed to reclaim his own life, his own dignity. "Do we have 30,000? The auctioneer called as the bid climbed. Emma's steps faltered at the door, turning back one last time toward her mother's painting. A single tear slid down her cheek, glistening under the chandeliers. Robert stood, eyes narrowing as he assessed the room. Iron Man might save the world with technology and quips, but Robert Downey Jr. had learned through his own hard journey that sometimes real heroism meant standing up when everyone else remained comfortably seated. He adjusted his cufflinks and began moving forward through the crowd. Things are about to take a turn. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, like our video, and keep watching. 40,000, do I hear 45? The auctioneer's voice rose with excitement as paddles continued lifting throughout the room. The painting that had once hung in a modest apartment above a small bed was now a commodity being traded like stocks. Emma stood frozen at the doorway, the security guards pausing awkwardly, unsure whether to physically remove the child who seemed rooted to the spot. "Excuse me?" Robert's voice cut through the bidding war, not particularly loud but carrying the unmistakable weight of someone accustomed to being heard. Conversations halted, heads turned, cameras redirected. The room collectively inhaled as they recognized the voice before even seeing his face. Robert Downey Jr. moved with purposeful strides toward the front of the room, passing between tables of New York's elite, who whispered his name in surprised recognition. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," he continued, now standing at the edge of the stage where the auctioneer blinked in confusion. Robert turned toward Emma, still flanked by security near the exit. "Young lady, would you mind joining me up here for a moment?" The security guards looked to the event organizer, who nodded quickly. Nobody was going to stop Robert Downey Jr. from doing anything at their charity auction. Emma walked slowly back through the room, her worn sneakers suddenly deafening in the expectant silence. Phones recorded from every angle as Robert extended his hand to her with the same respect he'd offer any adult. The contrast was stark, his perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit beside her faded dress from a department store sale rack. "I think we should hear what you have to say about this painting," Robert said, his voice gentle but carrying clearly through the space. The auctioneer shifted uncomfortably, glancing at his list of high-profile bidders who were now watching with mixed expressions of amusement and annoyance at the interruption. "Sir, Mr. Downey, we're in the middle of—" the auctioneer began. "I'm aware," Robert cut him off with the same sharp precision that had made his portrayal of Tony Stark so compelling. "But I think we've missed something important here." He knelt to Emma's height, cameras flashing at the moment. "Would you tell everyone why you're here tonight?" Emma's fingers tightened around her envelope as she looked up at Robert, then out at the sea of faces. For a moment, it seemed she might crumble under the attention. But then she straightened her small shoulders and spoke with unexpected clarity. "My mom painted that," she said, pointing to the lighthouse canvas. "She painted it from her hospital room before she died last year. The lighthouse was the last thing she could see from her window." Emma swallowed hard. "Nobody told me they were selling it. I found out on the internet. I've been saving all my money since then." She opened her envelope, the coins and small bills visible to those closest to the stage. "I know it's not enough, but it's everything I have." Her voice didn't waver. "That lighthouse was our special place. She promised we'd go there together someday." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. The auctioneer cleared his throat. "That's a lovely story, but the painting was donated legally by the estate executor. Now shall we continue with the bidding at 45,000? Robert's eyes darkened as he rose to his full height, his gaze sweeping across the room with the intensity that had made him one of Hollywood's most compelling actors. When he spoke again, his voice carried both warmth and steel. "This story is only getting deeper. What would you do in this situation? Comment below, and let's talk." $43.27, Robert said, picking up Emma's envelope and holding it up. The amount that had seemed so pitiful moments ago now hung in the air with unexpected gravity. This young lady has offered everything she has in the world for something that can't be measured in market value. He turned to face the room, his expression a perfect blend of charm and challenge. "I've been in rooms like this my entire life. I've watched people pay obscene amounts for things they'll barely look at once they own them." He gestured toward Emma. "And here's someone who would look at this painting every day for the rest of her life and see her mother in every brushstroke." The room shifted uncomfortably. A few guests lowered their auction paddles while others whispered behind manicured hands. The auctioneer's smile had become fixed, professional courtesy battling with impatience. "Mr. Downey, while we appreciate the sentiment, this is a charity auction. The proceeds go to children in need," the auctioneer explained with strained patience. "Children like her?" Robert asked, his eyebrow arching with the perfect timing that had won him Golden Globes. The auctioneer faltered, realizing the corner he'd been backed into. A woman in the front row, clearly sensing the viral potential of the moment, lowered her paddle and announced, "I withdraw my bid." Her companion quickly followed suit. Robert nodded appreciatively but didn't stop. "Let me ask everyone here a question. What is art actually worth?" He gestured to the painting. "Is it worth what someone will pay for it? Or is it worth what it means to the person who needs it most?" He placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. "I could easily outbid everyone in this room, but that would miss the point entirely." His gaze swept across the audience, making deliberate eye contact with several influential faces. "This isn't about money. It's about recognizing when the system, even a well-intentioned one, is failing to see the human beings within it." The room had fallen completely silent. Every phone was recording. Event organizers hovered at the edges, unsure whether to intervene. Emma stood still beside Robert, her eyes fixed on her mother's painting as if memorizing every detail in case this was her last chance to see it. "I'd like to make a proposal," Robert continued, his voice carrying the same confident authority that had defined his most iconic roles. "I will donate $100,000 to this charity right now." A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. "But," he raised a finger, "the painting goes home with Emma." He turned to the event organizer who had hurried to the stage. "Your organization will receive more than double what you would have from the auction. Emma gets her mother's final work, and everyone here gets to be part of something authentic for a change." The event organizer stammered, "That's very generous, Mr. Downey, but there are procedures." "Sometimes, procedures need to be reconsidered," Robert interrupted, his smile unwavering but his eyes intense. "Let me put it this way. This story ends with either Emma getting her mother's painting or with headlines tomorrow about how a room full of millionaires and a charity organization couldn't find it in their hearts to do the right thing." He paused. "Social media is already watching. What ending would you prefer?" The organizer looked around at the sea of phones recording, the withdrawn bidders, and the small girl standing beside one of Hollywood's most powerful stars. There was only one possible outcome now. It's not over yet. The best part is coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Sold to Miss Emma for $43.27, with a generous supplementary donation from Mr. Downey, the auctioneer announced, his professional smile finally reaching his eyes. The room erupted in applause, a sound that washed over Emma as she stared in disbelief at the painting that would soon hang in her small bedroom, rather than in some investor's storage facility. Robert knelt beside her again. "Your mother would be proud of you for fighting for what matters," he said quietly, away from the microphones. "That takes real courage." Emma nodded, words failing her as tears finally spilled freely down her cheeks. Around them, the auction attendees were rising from their seats, many wiping away tears of their own. Phones continued recording as the event staff carefully removed the painting from its display and brought it over, presenting it not to Robert, but directly to Emma. By morning, the video had spread across every platform. Robert Downey Jr. hadn't simply made a donation, he delivered a masterclass in genuine compassion that resonated far beyond celebrity charity work. Comment sections filled with stories of lost parents, treasured mementos, and the true value of objects that carry love rather than just price tags. The charity received more donations in the following 24 hours than in the previous year. Other celebrities, not wanting to be outdone, made their own contributions. But what captivated people most wasn't the money. It was the image of Emma walking out of the auction hall clutching her mother's painting, Robert Downey Jr. carrying her envelope of savings with the same care he might give to an Oscar. "Sometimes the things that matter most can't be priced," read Robert's single social media post about the event, accompanied by a photo of Emma reunited with her mother's art, but with the girl's face respectfully blurred to protect her privacy. No mention of his donation. No self-congratulation. Emma hung the lighthouse painting above her bed that night, in the small apartment she shared with her aunt. She placed her empty savings envelope beside it, a reminder that some things are worth everything you have, even when everything isn't much. In interviews that followed, Robert deflected praise. "I didn't do anything special," he insisted to a morning show host. "I just noticed what everyone else was too busy to see, that art isn't just about what hangs on walls, it's about what lives in hearts." When pressed about his history of addiction and recovery influencing his actions, he simply said, "When you've been at the bottom, you develop a pretty good radar for when someone needs an ally." The painting of the lighthouse remained with Emma, its value immeasurable in any currency that mattered. And in auction houses and gallery openings across the country, a subtle change began, as people found themselves pausing more often to ask not just, "What is it worth?" but "Who needs it most?" Because Robert Downey Jr. had reminded them that sometimes the truest measure of wealth is what you're willing to give away. Wow, what a story! If this moved you, imagine what else we have for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think.